How's it going, guys? Joe Youngblood here with Whitetail Habitat Solutions. I hope you are doing well. We are out here today with the weed barrier. We're doing the next step when it comes to our plantings for this spring. Cutting should be coming here, in lower Michigan, late April, early May. We'll get them in, of course, like I've been saying, as soon as possible. So we got to get this weed barrier on the ground. I'm going to spread these out, make that star pattern, show you what I envisioned. I know I drew it out for you a couple of videos ago, but show you what it looks like in real life here in the field. Get these pinned down, see if there's any snafus I run into that I want to make you guys aware about. We'll get the T-post set, and that's kind of the goal. In total, we have at least 12 of these to do. I don't know how many I'll get done today, but I want to bring you at least what it's looking like and how it's going so we can be ready and just save a little bit more time in the future, spread things out a little bit. So again, hope everyone's well, happy Easter, and let's get the show on the road. All right, so we have kind of our first star pattern in here on the ground, if you can see it. And so you have our 30-foot piece down the middle, and then our little kind of 12-foot legs, our 4 12-foot legs off of each thing. So really you got 4 pieces plus the long one, so that's 5 pieces. Now I'm gonna come through, start sticking our T-posts in. Definitely want to try and find a non-windy day, guys. I mean, it's only, I think, 8-9 miles an hour right now, and especially with one person, it's still a little bit of a struggle. You can kind of just go pin by pin and things like that, but it also kind of makes me think too, to be a little bit more overzealous with these landscape stakes, what we use for the weed barrier. I think I can show you one for what the box looks like right here. I know, again, I showed you in a previous video, but just sticking those through the weed barrier. If I have to buy another box, whatever, even if I don't get them all in today, but I would hate to get things set up and then end up just redoing stuff for the extra 10 bucks that's probably gonna cost me. So I'll be a little overzealous, get that done, and sure, in a year or two, I'll pick them back up. I don't think they're not very hard to push in, and they're not gonna be very hard, I don't think, to take out unless you really step on them, which I'm not doing. I'm just giving them a good push into the ground. So again, really a non-windy day, or you're just gonna probably be struggling, especially if you're like me and you're doing a lot of this on your own. But I am doing basically the edges, and then I'm walking. You can see kind of the edges that I'm doing there, and then I'm walking up the middle and doing them every, I'd probably say not more than 3 feet. Once you start doing that, I start to see a lot of these ripples. So I'm gonna be placing them a little bit closer together. So I'm gonna stake these down a little bit more, and we will get those T-posts thrown in there and show you guys what that looks like. One other quick ad I wanted to give you guys is try not to find spots that have these taller weeds, dead stuff in the way. It makes it really hard to lay flat, and then you got all these things underneath it. Now, if you have something where you can till it up a little bit, that can make things much easier. It does kind of bring up weed seeds, but when you put this on top, right, you're shading all that out, and not much of anything is gonna come up. It's gonna be dead. So it's perfectly okay to go with that method. If you have the time, equipment, people, things like that, by all means, kind of till up the area, put your weed barrier down. Makes it easy to do screening, all kinds of different things. But if you're doing it this way and kind of just right before spring green up, or as it's kind of coming up, covering things up to prevent stuff from growing, then you're gonna wanna try and find areas where it doesn't have quite all this right here. Additionally, I wanted to mention, changed it up just slightly. I wanted to at least tell you, instead of going down the middle, I just kind of staggered 4 rows. So I have both edges, edge and edge. And then what I kind of do is step with my feet. So I would step on one of the hooks, push some weeds down, and I would poke one in, and then I would step on that, step back on the edge one, because sometimes you'll notice they get lifted up just a little bit, especially if you're working with some bad ground, kind of my mistake. But then you can kind of push a weed down. You can step on anything that lifted up again, put one down, step on your next one, and you get a real good push into each of these stakes with your foot. You kind of push all the weeds down also as you're walking, and then you kind of staggered it throughout, 4 rows basically over this. Now this is 6.5 foot weed barrier, so it's generally a little bit wider too than if most people are doing 6 foot and things like that. But yeah, so I'm gonna wrap this circle up. I'm gonna use some of these other areas, which I have plenty, where the weeds aren't quite as bad. Otherwise, I would just grab a tractor and get that tilled a little bit. So Not gonna worry about it right now. I'm thinking probably only gonna be able to do half of these today. Just a lot more back breaking than we always think, right? So, all right guys, you can see our star done. This is one complete one. I do think I'm gonna go through and do a couple pins kind of in between the halfway and the edge and just line some more again, just to be safe. It's not a ton of extra money to get another box of pins and just have these secured down. Really don't want, 2 weeks to go by, this be a huge mistake, and half of these are blowing off in the distance, and I gotta spend a day running around and picking up garbage or re-putting them down. So that would really stink. But you can see the T-posts are set at the top of each leg. I left about a 1 foot or so gap around the edge because I have 100-foot net per circle, 8 feet tall, I think. Now these are only probably 6.5 or so feet high, but I think the netting being slightly above it and it's zip tied down, I don't think any deer, unless they were super starving, the Michael Jordan of deer, are going to be jumping over that too much. So not too worried. And then I'm going to take it all the way to the bottom and zip tie it to try and keep some rabbits and things like that out as well. The other thing is, a 30-foot perfect diameter circle has a circumference all the way around of 94 or so feet. So that gives us about 6 feet in leeway, and that's a perfect circle. So when you take, point to point from each post, it's a straight line, which will even cut a couple more feet off. So the extra foot, I think, on each thing should be fine. We have a buffer to begin with of 6 feet for the 100-foot net, and then these kind of straight lines making a little bit more of a hexagon than a circle. Should not need to worry about resetting T-posts and kind of moving things in if the net wasn't long enough, but just be kind of cognizant of that. Would not be good to redo any of this. But that's it, guys. This is where I'm going to continue working, get even more out of breath, get this stuff down and kind of scatter it out. You can see, over this way, in between the switchgrass is a linear food plot, and we have some woods back here. And I don't know if you can see over there, but I have some, 2 to 3 foot pines. Some are on going into their 3rd year, I guess, and some are going into their 2nd year. Some smaller ones back near the ATV and stuff.